Welcome back to Physics Today. This is a continuation of our example problems. It shouldn't take very long since I think you guys understand a lot of the important stuff. At least it was in the first video. So I'm sure those of you that missed have already watched that, so you're coming in with the same knowledge of everybody else, right? First thing you have to do is have your checklist, right, everybody? So V sub naught, V, A, X, and T. And these are all lowercase, in case you were wondering. Okay, so I got a V sub naught of 20 meters per second. My V, I don't know. My acceleration is negative 10. Uh-oh. There's something that doesn't actually work here. What did I do? Or what did I not do? I didn't say that this was negative, right? Because you can see that there's a direction there. And since I said my acceleration is negative 10, which is also in that direction, I need to make sure I follow my convention throughout the whole entire problem. So then that means I have a negative here too, right? So I got a negative 35, and then my time is what I'm looking for. Okay, so I look at my formulas, and if I wanted to use the quadratic, I could definitely do that with this formula right here. X equals V sub naught t plus 1/2 at squared. And you know, it's okay for you to do that in your calculator. If you have that, I don't care. You're going to get two roots, and you're going to have to figure out which one is the right one, which is not that hard to do usually. Okay, but just let's look at this just to make sure, so we can kind of like analyze the problem before we do the math. I know it's 20 meters per second. I'm going to go 35 meters. If I stayed at 20 meters per second for 1 second, I'd go 20 meters, right? I know I'm going to increase. So I'm going to have to say that my final velocity is going to be, you know, somewhere between, I don't know, around 25 or something like that. Does that make sense? And that's probably not a very good guess, but you should. The important thing is you should start thinking about what you're doing before you do the math and after you do the math. So instead of using the quadratic, because I'm not going to show that on my front page, I'm going to use two formulas, and I'm going to find my final velocity first. So v squared equals v sub naught squared plus 2ax. My final velocity then is the square root of 20 squared. And remember, keep in mind that's actually a negative 20, right? Now, let me ask you this. Does that negative get squared? It does, because it's actually part of the number that's describing the velocity. It's not a math thing. It's not like I moved this number around or anything. So that actually is a number that gets squared, or a negative that gets squared. And then plus 2 times negative 10 times negative 35. Okay, so we get 17.32 meters per second. Now, normally when I figure out a number that I'm going to use later, I do kind of a different box instead of boxing, because now I'm going to ask you to box your answers all the time, so I can tell where it is, because there's going to be a lot of math spread around. I'll normally like do some kind of squiggly line, so I tell myself, hey, this is not a final answer. This is something I'm going to use later. Now, that happens to be completely incorrect by looking at it, because, geez, if I'm starting at negative 20 meters per second and I'm increasing my speed because the acceleration is in the same direction, then I would have to say there's no way this can be the right answer. So, whoever helped me, did you square this negative? Because that'd be a positive 400 plus, this is going to be a positive number 2, that's going to be a positive 700, 1100, the square root of 1100 is something more like 33 or 34, something like that. Okay, so 33.16 meters per second is the correct answer. So you got to be careful with your signs in this stuff, because what happened is somebody maybe made this a negative number, so you didn't square that negative out. Is probably what happened. Actually, it was more than one person. So anyway, our final velocity then is negative 33.16. Now we can go with our other formula, v equals v sub naught plus AT. Solve for t. V minus V sub naught divided by A. T then equals 33.16 minus 20 divided by 10 equals 1.32 seconds. Okay. Okay, the question was, why did I put a positive 10? Well, you probably do that too later. But if you look at this, this is actually a negative number, which I didn't fill in, right? See up here, negative number? And this would be minus another negative number. So I'm sorry about that. I have a tendency to do that. Change the signs on both in the middle of the problem when it comes to time, because time is scalar, which I don't suggest to do that. And that's a negative 10 too. Okay, here's our next one. I'm going to just fill in the checklist here. So we got V sub naught, V, acceleration. This acceleration is negative 10. So I got to put in this negative number up here for the 40, right? Just a negative, negative. I know my x is going to be a negative number, so I might want to put that off to the side right there so I know that. So we're looking for two things, v and x, and I know v is going to be a negative number too, right? Okay, so, well, we can just go v equals v sub naught plus at, then v equals negative 40 plus negative 10 times 7. V then equals 110 meters per second. And that's a negative. Any questions about that? Wait a second here. So I can go ahead and fill that in. I got negative 110 meters per second. Now my x, I could use, two different formulas. X equals v sub naught t plus 1/2 at squared. Displacement then is negative 40 times 7 minus 5. That's the 1/2 at, right? Or the 1/2 a times 49. Okay, so our displacement then in that case is going to be negative 525 meters. And that is the correct answer. Okay, so that one was easy. So let's go on to the next one then. Okay, so here we got a v sub naught of 0, v we don't know, x we don't know, or yeah, x we do know, right? What would x be, everybody? Negative 200. Its displacement, acceleration is negative 10 meters per second squared, and our time we don't know, but we're not looking for it. But I might as well have that checklist down. So there's really only one formula that will work. We could use a couple, but why in this case? So we're looking for v, so it's the square root of 0 squared plus a negative 20 times a negative 200. Okay, so v is the square root, is it 20? (63.25) meters per second in the negative direction. So negative 63.25 meters per second. Okay. Could we find time if we wanted to? Yeah, v equals v sub naught plus at. Okay, another example. We're looking for v here, right? So we got our v checklist. Our v sub naught is 0. Acceleration is 4 meters per second squared. Displacement is 30 meters. Now, is 30, should that be positive or negative in this case? Positive, right? Because I already said earlier that this direction is positive when I put in my checklist that way. Okay? So, with this, you can just use, our v squared equals v sub naught squared plus 2ax. We're solving for v right now. So v then is the square root of 0 squared plus 2 times 4 times 30. So the square root of 240 is 15.49 meters per second. Okay, now I could use that here if I want. 15.49, and that's a positive number because it's in the positive direction. Now for time, I could just use either other formula, but I'm going to use this one. It's a little easier. V equals v sub naught plus AT. So time equals V minus V sub naught divided by A, which in this case, time is 15.49 minus 0 divided by 4 is 3.87 seconds. 3.87 seconds is the time that it took to do that. Any questions? Okay, so the request from the problem is to do the time part first. Okay, and the reason is so you can understand that you can manipulate these problems, because we have it written as v, or final velocity, is equal to 0. But since you're in physics, you can climb up there and fall back down, knowing that there's a symmetry in this projectile motion. So if I look at this formula right here, x equals v sub naught t plus 1/2 at squared. The nice thing about this is there's only one v in there. And the v is v sub naught, which this v is final, but I can make it initial, right? Because I can do whatever I want with my problems. So I'm going to, instead of saying that I'm going up, I'm going to climb up here and pretend like I'm going down. Because I can do that. Which, then conveniently, I get rid of that. So then my formula equals x equals 1/2 at squared. And t then equals the square root of 2x over little g. T then equals the square root of 2 times -4 divided by -10. So then t becomes 0.89 seconds. Okay, so we got one more example here, and then we can see if you guys can do this on your own. Oh, wait, we're not done with that, are we? Because we don't want v sub naught here, too. So I'm just going to put in 0.89 seconds for my answer, and then v sub naught, you could use v equals v sub naught plus at, or in this case, you could also do v squared equals v sub naught squared plus 2ax. And so 0 equals v sub naught squared plus 2ax. Negative v sub naught squared divided by divided by nothing. Negative v sub naught squared equals 2 times -10 times -4. So, negative square root of v sub naught squared square root of 80. So v sub naught then equals negative 8.94 meters per second. Okay, so we look at this, negative 8.94 is not right, it's in the wrong direction. It might be the right number, but it is in the wrong direction. So we need to look at what we did here. First of all, the question is this a squared value? Is that sine squared? No, it isn't, right? Because all I did is subtract v sub naught squared. So that is not the problem. Okay, well, how about this then? Acceleration, that's in the negative direction because it's slowing it down, right? Displacement is in the positive direction. So this is where I screwed up here, right? Okay, so if you would continue on down to this next level here, you would have a negative under the radical, which your calculator doesn't like, right? Any ideas on how to get rid of that right now? Well, before you get to this line, what you could do is divide both sides by -1, and then you have a positive under the radical, and then we got rid of this right here, and then we got rid of that right there, and then we get the right answer, 8.94. So ultimately, you got to be careful with your math. You got to be thinking, which way should this thing be going? Am I coming up with the right sign or not? And one more question here for us, kind of way down here at the bottom. So we also got a v that we don't know, and we've got an acceleration that's going to be -10. And why is it -10? Well, because I said upwards, which is the initial velocity, is positive, our acceleration is downwards. So we're looking for displacements, okay? Okay, so with this formula, we can see that our displacement is equal to v sub naught t plus 1/2 at squared. This is just plain plug and chug. My initial velocity is 20. My time is 2.5 seconds. Minus 5 times 2.5 squared. My total displacement is 20. And is it in the positive direction? Okay, 20 meters. Okay, 20 is a good estimation, but the actual answer is 18.75 meters. And that is the correct answer. Hopefully this helps you guys understand how to do some problems here with these formulas. Have a good day.